Welcome to Coffee with Clover. Thank you for joining us today. On this day, we have our very first special edition, an intriguing moment. Here we engage in an in-depth conversation on a trending topic. Today we decide to speak about living your best life. This was actually a quote by Oprah Winfrey. And so social media and society has drawn it out of proportion. Here to join me to speak about this topic, Professor and co-author Nicole Bagoo. Nicole, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Clover. It's
Nice
a pleasure to be
you.
here. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for the invite.
So 2020 is coming. This year is ending. It's a new season for everyone. And living your best life has been a topic that has been trending for a while. What's your thoughts on living your best life?
We only have 20 minutes to give you my thoughts here.
Okay.
You know, first and foremost, living our best life, that's something like you mentioned, social media tends to portray as a certain way, even society as a whole. And I think sometimes we as individuals, we get caught up in the mix. My definition of living a best life is really finding your true self. And your true self, how I define that, is yourself without fears. And you know, I can go back and say, when I look through the journey of my life, my own life, I was where social media had pegged it. You know, I had the house, I had the husband, I had the travel, I had the dogs, I had the cars, I had all of that, the fancy title, the career, and then life happened. And sometimes we are so caught up in the mix of life that we forget to take a moment to really reflect on who is our true self. You know, things happen to us, circumstances come, we have our different patterns in our life where we're happy, we're sad, we're going through the motions of it. But do we ever stop to question, why are we going through it? What was the purpose of that? What was my silver lining or my learning? And I'm an individual that has taken a lot of time out to really hone in on who is my true self. What are the things that I am driven to do, and why am I being driven to do it? And in doing that, there's the concept of self-reflection, right? You know, we live in a society that's so me-focused, but unfortunately, and again, this is my opinion on it, we're me-focused on the wrong things. We're focused on the lust of the eye and the things that we think is going to make us happy. The fancy house, the husband, the $60,000 wedding, the gown, all of that good stuff. It may make you happy for the moment, I'm not saying no, but is that going to add value and give you true happiness and sense of fulfillment as time and space goes on?
I know, and as you said, the me moment, and if you notice even on social media, someone will post a picture, and it's always positive. I'm smiling, I'm out with friends, I'm having a party. What about the negative times when you have to sit by yourself and cry?
And that's the beauty of it, because that is finding your true self. We all have our ups and downs, and if you can recognize and hone in on, hey, I'm having a moment here, I need to take, whether it's a 5-minute, 10-minute, or even a week, a month, to have my own pity party. I need that moment to grieve or to cry or to be by myself, to self-reflect, to recalibrate where is my dial pointing me to next in life.
And then no one talks about the pity party.
Well, I on the other hand, wrote a book about it.
Oh, really?
So, you know, you had mentioned that the co-author, ironically, it's called The Process. And when I got introduced to it, something that completely fell in my lap that I didn't even plan on it. I had to write a biography on a woman of faith. And I didn't want to do a Joyce Myers or anybody that's popular in the scene. I just wanted to do a regular schmo who's just living her life for Christ.
And that's you.
And no, that's actually a girlfriend of mine who's a minister. And in doing the biography on her, I stumbled across Farrah Hodgson, who ended up having to say to me, what's your story? And when I shared my story with her, she was like, my goodness, why don't you come and write this book with me? And at that moment, you know, in my personal life, I was dealing with a lot of things. My father was going through a period of psychosis. I just put my father to rest a month ago.
I'm sorry to hear
thank
that.
you, thank you. But there is a whole journey behind that. You know, prior to taking care of my dad, I had the lifestyle of what social media
Portray
or society
as living
portrayed
your
as
best
living
life.
the life. I was vice president of my company, company car, traveled, house, husband, all of that. And my world came to an end when I lost my job, and it really made me focus on what next. I was going through, I said to you, some issues with my dad, and we couldn't figure it out, and I refused to have my father be a part of the system. So I became a champion, and that's actually how I met you, was through the mental health symposium. I became a champion because I didn't want my dad to be a statistic. And you know, sometimes, Clover, we go through life and we know we're going through the motions, but it only becomes clear to us when we look in the rearview mirror. And it's at that point where I can look back now and say, I am so thankful I had that year and a half off of work. You know, things were provided for. You know, I give God the glory for that, because I truly don't know how does somebody who just bought a home, took in 2 parents to live with them, lost their job, went from 2 incomes to 1 income to no income, and yet still able for a year and a half to live.
Did you look at your downfall as losing your best life, that you thought you had living your best life?
Originally, I did. I was quite an angry child. I couldn't make sense of my own emotions that I was dealing with, right? Do I get back into the corporate world? What is it I want to do? I have an ill father I need to take care of. Family has always been a huge value in my life. And I think that's part of the missing component of today's society, values. We live in an environment, a society today, that is in entitlement mode, that is so me-focused, but again, me-focused on the flashiness.
But then it sounds as if that situation took you on a path where, okay, I'm on this level, it's phasing out, where do I go next?
That's right, and I didn't know where to go next. I really didn't. And I had to keep saying to myself, stay in the moment. Live for what it is, live for the now. And I remember not knowing how to deal with my father and not being able to get him the medical help that he needed. I hated going home. And I remember I drove up to my driveway and just dropped in my spirit, love him back to health. And I really had to question that, because you know, my first thought was, I love my father. What do you mean love him back to health? And I had to say, okay, well, what is love? What we think is love, you know, there are many different kinds of love. There's filial love, there's eros love, and then there's agape love, right? And I really had to realign what is agape love. And
there's also infatuation, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And in my realignment was when I truly discovered what it is to love somebody selflessly. And having looked past the lifestyle that I lived before, thinking that that was my true happiness, no, like I said to you, values, family, all of that good stuff that was enriched in my upbringing, here now I got to pay it back to my father who was ill. And being able to be at home, just to be at home, to take him to his appointments, to sit with him and coach him daily on getting through some of his own pain and hurt. That became such a joy for me, that it's such a rewarding and fulfilling feeling to see somebody that you love find healing, who can then be happy with who they are, their true self. And in doing that, that's where I discovered my true self.
And that was another level that you were on of living your best life.
That's right.
And we'll take a break. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back. So, Nicole, how do we define true self in this process?
What I use to define true self, like again, I said to you, it's yourself without fears. And sometimes we don't, whether your fear is known or unknown, we don't know how that manifests or shows up. Sometimes a fear could be something that shows up as low confidence, right? So I think in reflecting on your own values and what's a priority to you versus what's a priority to everybody else in your world, but what makes you happy, right? It's you have to look at your self-image. You know, that perception that you have of yourself, is that a healthy one? Is that a happy one? Is that where you want to be? So anything that I look at it in 3 prongs. It's what is my current state, what is my desired state, and what are the steps we take to get there.
So you have to constantly do an evaluation.
Constantly.
That's important.
Personally, I go through it. I had a great life coach, the late great Miss Linda Kay. She was the personal scriber for Tony Robbins. So I've trained with some of the best in my time. And it was an exercise that we used to do just randomly every 6 months, because we change. We change as people, our values change. As we attain goals, okay, well, what's next?
Situation changes,
right?
Right.
She had always groomed me towards not hard working, but high performance. And they call that in the workplace high potentials, right? So these are the people that can think outside the box, that can do a little bit more than your regular Joe, because they've got that mindset created to go, go, go. So when you're looking at yourself, I always tell people, if you have a confidence issue, whether it's too low and you need to jump out of that funk, people usually don't have the how, the roadmap. So in my professional career, I teach at the college level business communications. My training as well is I'm a trained behavioral coach, so I can see things. I can pick up on the nonverbals. I can tell you how to gain influence, how to get into rapport. But it's only as good as words unless you practice it, unless you play with it and you see that the theories themselves, they work. So one of the things that I teach my students all the time is the concept of self-reflection. You know, look at your self-esteem. Where do you place the worth of your life, the value of your life? Look at your self-image. What is the perception you have of you? So I tell them I define confidence as self-image plus self-esteem plus communication. Communication is not just talking. It's not the words that come out of our mouth, right?
It's nonverbal too.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of people that think, oh, well, I'm a great communicator. Meanwhile, your words might be great, your tone might be a little smelly, and your physiology, your body language might be completely opposite than what's coming out of your mouth or the tone that you're speaking in. Words are 7%. It's nothing. Tone is 38. Physiology is 55. And then there are techniques that go along with that on how to leverage the body language. So for example, I teach my kids mirroring. And I tell them, play with it on the bus, guys. When you go home, you'll see how it works. If somebody's sitting with their legs like you, just start to mirror you. And you see, you just changed your position. It naturally does that because that is the body language that's speaking to your subconscious mind. So there's a big piece of communication that we forget. We think communication is just words, but it's everything else. And growing up, I grew up in a West Indian household. My mom used to always say, it's not what you say, child, it's how you say it.
It's how you say it.
My tone.
The tone, definitely. It can be, whatever you say can be a tone that
That's right. That's right.
boosts your spirit.
That's right.
How can one be reminded to keep on the, does it always have to be on the ups? Because if you're on the downside, as I said before, it's a time to evaluate yourself.
We all have our negative moments. And if you choose to share that negative moments amongst people, so be it.
That's human, right?
That's human nature. Some of us don't want to show the darker sides of ourselves to public. So we may choose to have our own pity party by ourselves. Or we may choose that there's only a certain audience, my spouse will get the negative side of me because that's my comfort zone and what have you. That's fine, but if that is something that you value as to what's important to your true self, you don't want to come off as a negative person, then you have to make a conscious decision to want to work on that and not just say, I need to change that. And these are strategies that you can employ, and you know, to each their own. I used to walk around with a rubber band on my hand. So if I said something that I didn't like, I'd snap myself to remind myself I'm working on this, you know?
It's good you were working on you, but then I'm wondering how many people in your situation, probably my situation, really do a self-evaluation and say, hey,
We don't.
They don't.
We don't. And that's part of the problem. And that's why we get caught up with living the best you based on other people's projection of what is happiness.
And social media says this is how it's supposed to be. So someone will go on and every day it's a fresh quote and it's a positive quote. And I'm thinking, how many people can really stick to these? Yeah, be positive. There are downtimes in your life.
I say transparency works best. If I'm having a bad day, I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I'm not in the mood. When I walk into class to give my lectures, if my day is off, I give my students forewarning. So I reset the expectation because they know that Miss normally comes in, she's bubbly, she's got a high energy level that she flows with. But for example, the day my father passed, I was lecturing, right, when I got the news. And everybody, that's where compassion comes in.
And that's a turning point for you.
And that is also a huge piece of the puzzle is empathy. A lot of people, because we are so me-focused, it's not about the other person, it is about self. Self from a reflection standpoint is great, but self from a gain on how to live your life day to day, not so great. Maybe you need to be a little empathetic. Maybe in knowing that someone lost their dad, walk a mile in their shoes and understand their mindset and ease up a little bit, or maybe pay attention more in class so the professor's not having to bring the class back in.
Everyone has to cross that path of losing someone. So not until someone gets there, then they know exactly what you were going through.
That's right.
My concept of living my best life is just live, love, laugh. I'm a bit free-spirited, but not every time I want to speak. Sometimes I'm so quiet, super quiet, you wouldn't believe it's me. But then I just think live, love, laugh, and
I think you said it best. Laughter.
It will be so contagious, right?
Absolutely. Laughter is contagious for the soul.
Yeah.
You have to live. You know, I look at people that go through spurts of depression or anxiety, and that's where my empathy and my compassion comes in for them, because it's not that I need to shovel them out of their funk. I have to have the sympathy for them and understanding that this is their model of the world. I can't force my model of picking myself up onto somebody that's not their model of the world.
It is.
So share in that moment with them. Be the support that they need and not what you need.
We do need each other.
We do. We do. We were not created to be by ourselves. Not at all. And I think the biggest part of what you just said, live, love, and laugh, love. If we would truly just love one another, genuinely, selflessly, this world would be such a different place.
Yeah.
You as an individual, there's a gratitude and a fulfillment that nobody can take that away from your spirit. Even if you're having the worst day of your life, but you know you give your all through how you love others. You know, that's the secret ingredient. And I truly believe in having gone through my journey to where I sit now in my 40 years of living, that this was my purpose in life, was to teach people how to love. We say we love people, but do we really love people?
Do we really? And we all have a purpose in life. We should find our purpose and walk in our path. How did you, have you bounced back yet from your dad's passing?
You know, I'm thankful that I had the year and a half to be with him. I left home at a very young age, so I had that one-on-one with Dad. And when we got notified that, you know, it was stage 4 cancer we were dealing with, we knew the timelines. I made every moment count. I stopped fussing over the stupidness of, you know,
the little things.
The little things. They say, you know, once a man, twice a child. Okay, he's at his second point of being kid-like. I need the repeat. How many times as a child I was repeating, and they as parents had to hold their tongue or keep their patience.
You just have to let go.
Why can't I return that in his older age, right? So the death wasn't shocking, the timing of it was, but my father passed in the most peaceful, loving way at home in my brother's arms. I have the best memory any daughter can ever want. I got up that morning, went in his room, prayed with him, just pillow talked with him until I left for work that day.
Pillow talk.
And that was, well, his jubilee, his 50th anniversary would have been in December.
Wow.
So to keep Dad's spirit motivated, we used to talk about planning the event. Right?
And he was on the planning stage too? Wow.
Yeah.
So that was one of your way of
That was one of my way of loving him.
Loving him. Knowing what's
keeping,
to come.
Exactly. Keeping his mind not focused on having cancer. Okay, we know you have cancer, there's still life. You said live. Live, Dad. Laugh. Love.
Wow.
You know, it took a real toil on him as a West Indian man. His dignity suffered a lot in that process of having cancer. And I used to always tell him, you still have us. Yeah, we're at different points in our journeys, and what you could have done, you can't do. Allow us to love you. I said, because I said to him, would you prefer me to hire a nurse? No. Well, then allow us to love you.
We'd rather having you there, yeah.
Allow us to love you.
Do you think it was destined to be that you would be there, having devoted your time?
Yeah. Absolutely. I always say
God's timing
is an on-time. We serve an on-time God.
Right.
And he knew why I left home at such a young age and lived the life that I lived. And having the knowledge that I have gained over the years and those that I was able to partner with. And I always have this connection with older people. I don't know what it is, but I like hearing the stories, and that's where the wisdom comes from.
They have some stories,
right?
Yeah.
And especially back home, you can learn so much if we would just stop being so stubborn, and it's my way or the highway. There's somebody who did it before you.
Listen.
Right? It's called, in the business world, that's called standardization. If someone has a process and it's work, why are you trying to reinvent the wheel?
They have been there, so they're able to tell you all about
it.
Before you get there, take caution.
That's right.
But most times we don't. Not until you experience it, you realize, oh, that's what they were trying to say to
Right.
me. What can you say to others after all that you've gone through?
I would like to say, guys, self-reflection is a huge thing. If you don't know where you're going in life, for what purpose you were created for, you're just wandering. And if you're wandering, everything else that comes in that looks as though that is supposed to be my happy spot, my best life, I'm gonna call a spade and say, is it really true to you? Or are you trying to project what someone else is living? So you have to take that moment out, look at your life. What is important to you? What is a value? Do it at least every 6 months because we change as individuals. And then don't just say it. Self-accountability. Hold yourself accountable.
And do it.
Where you are, where you want to be, what do you have to do to get there?
Okay. All right. Living your best life is all about what you define it to be. Make sure it's worth it at the end of the day. Until next time, thanks for watching. See you next time.